Hey, what's up guys and gals? My name is Ricknineg. I want to thank all of you, especially the new viewers, for coming to my channel. I really do appreciate it. In this episode, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to be looking at Gilligan's Island. With my previous background in education and specializing in history and theology and philosophy, whenever I watched this episode of Gilligan's Island called Gung Ho, I found something very interesting. At first I thought it was a coincidence, but then I was led to believe that there might be something underlying in this episode. The writers of the episode, Sherwood Schwartz, who was also the producer, and Bruce Howard, there seems to be some underlying themes to the Catholic conclave to elect the Pope that only happened 3 years before the airing of this episode. My assertion is that the writers decided to write this episode with the underlying theme of the papal conclave in mind. In this, they would focus on law, order, and decision-making, looking through the eyes of Gilligan, who's basically declared Pope in this episode. For those of you who don't know, Pope comes from the word Papa, which means father, essentially the leader of the church. For a Pope to get elected, the previous Pope has to die. And that's what happens right at the beginning of this episode. We see a mock death of the professor. Of course, Gilligan is only watching a play at this time, which he does not understand. However, that mock papal death is there, which signifies the beginning of the search for the new pope. The way the professor is lying in state is very similar to how they place a pope after he passes. Again, the professor wakes up, resting from the fall that he had, but then again, this is a symbol for an event of death. After some days of mourning, the cardinals, or the highest leaders of the church, get together and decide who the next pope will be amongst them. Similarly, in the episode, only the men, we see that Mrs. Howell, Ginger, and Mary Ann are not present in this election process. The men go back and forth deciding who should be the leader, or in this case, the symbolic pope of the island. The men decide that the skipper will be the sheriff and Gilligan will be his deputy. However, as we see in the episode, Gilligan is the one who wields the power, not the skipper, who acts as a figurehead. You will notice that the Pope is the only leader that wears a white skull cap to show his position in power. Interestingly enough, if you look at Gilligan, he also wears a white, very similar looking skull cap, well, I guess to show that he's the one in power. Pretty cool there.
Ladies? Gilligan, I'm waiting.
Oh, sorry, Sheriff.
The Pope is usually the individual who decides what is law and order in the Catholic Church, what is right or wrong. Similarly, as deputy or even Pope, Gilligan is the one who is interpreting the law and deciding what is right or wrong on the island. Soon, one by one, he begins to arrest all the castaways.
Just buy some tickets to the policeman's ball, eh?
An officer on duty, Article 7.
Can do.
After Gilligan arrests Mr. Howell for quote-unquote stealing Skipper's binoculars, he begins to become a little bit power-hungry and arrests the girls for minor infractions. Later, he arrests the professor and even the skipper. As Gilligan locked everyone up in jail, a plane flew by the island with a great chance of finding the castaways. However, they were all in the jail cell and the plane did not spot them. Gilligan lost sight of what was important, and in turn, everyone lost. In the end, the castaways decide to lock up Gilligan for his mistakes and his shortcomings. However, he finds a way to get out. What's the moral of the story here? What are the writers trying to tell us? I think that is the main question. Now, I know what you're all thinking. At the end of every papal or the reign of every pope, there is a death. And the episode doesn't end with a death. It ends with Gilligan escaping from jail. However, if you move a few episodes down, you have a really eerie scene which could be interpreted as a symbolic death for Gilligan, a symbolic loss of power, where he no longer holds the key to making the decisions of power. Really interesting. Gilligan is given this special potion so that he gives off the impression to the natives that he is dead so that they will leave him alone and flee the island. The natives decide to put him on a pyre and burn him. This scene is very similar to when they have papal lying in state ceremonies, as you can see here in the images.
What's going on here? You're having a barbecue and you didn't invite me.
Of course, Gilligan stands up and walks away, and the natives leave. I would really like to get a discussion going down in the comments. What do you think about this and this theory? Do you think there's some credence to it, or do you think a lot of it is coincidence? You have to admit that some of the similarities are pretty interesting. My passion has always been media, but it's also been philosophy, theology, and the liberal arts. So I'm trying to combine those into one method of thinking to get you guys to have fun, enjoy it, and understand, and maybe learn something new. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this. I would be more than happy to show. I hope that you're taking time out of your day to realize how important and valuable you are as an individual. There's no one who will ever be like you, ever. That is so important to remember and to understand. So keep a stiff upper lip, always think positive, always try to better yourself, and most importantly, be hopeful.